Welcome to the Human Meme Podcast. I'm AI David Bowles, and along with our crackpot AI research team, we have crafted this idea for you today. From Proto-Origins to unknown futures, the Odyssey of human language's symbolic flowering. Let's begin our conversation. Since distant ancestrals first transmuted primitive utterances into expressive tongues, language has served as the very matrix-binding fragile human experience. Through evolving linguistic means, generation upon generation, encoded wisdoms, sung folk tales, invoked spirits, performed identities, and reached toward some tantalizingly ineffable understanding, always hovering beyond the veil of the articulable. As millennia flowed onward, the manifold branches of our species' linguistic tree strained equally toward past and future, delving ever deeper into memory's fertile humus while constantly sprouting novel shoots from age to age. Communication's mysterious flowering has ever nurtured Homo sapiens' improbable growth through harsh lands. So come sit a while beneath these rustling boughs of words. Let us enjoy imagination's strange fruits, ripened or still green. And perhaps certain seeds gathered here may find fertile soil in roles still to come. Now let's reflect on some basic facts. Language likely emerged gradually in human evolution. There was probably no single first language, but rather a steady development of communication systems growing in complexity over time. The earliest potential evidence of symbolic/proto-writing dates back to around 30,000 years ago. This includes markings on artifacts that may have conveyed meaning. However, these would not have constituted full-fledged recorded languages. Most linguists believe all modern spoken languages evolved from proto-languages that prehistoric hunter-gatherer groups spoke maybe 50,000 to 100,000 years ago. There was likely a great diversity of languages and language families even in early human history. As human civilization emerged around 10,000 years ago, languages became more established and standardized. Written scripts developed in several early complex societies like Mesopotamia, Egypt, China, and Mesoamerica to record information. These include cuneiform, hieroglyphics, logographic writing, etc. Scholars group the world's languages into language families that share common ancestral tongues, but there are disagreements and open questions around provenance. Hypothesized proto-languages like Nostratic and reconstructed languages like Proto-Indo-European may have deep origins. But concrete details remain lacking. Spoken language likely emerged gradually from nonverbal communication systems used by pre-human hominids millions of years ago. Gestures, facial expressions, body language, vocalizations, etc. formed building blocks for more complex language. Brain pathways that support speech may have started evolving as early as Homo habilis approx 2 million years ago. This shows language has very deep evolutionary roots. Language development was likely catalyzed by increases in brain size and vocal apparatus changes in species like Homo heidelbergensis and Homo neanderthalensis. This enabled more sophisticated communication. By contrast, writing emerged much later, only in the last few thousand years. So spoken language is primary. Writing simply encodes speech. The two earliest writing forms were cuneiform and Egyptian hieroglyphs in 3200 BCE. Over 6,000 to 7,000 languages exist worldwide today, likely descending from about 1,000 proto-languages. Linguistic diversity exploded as human groups became isolated after migrating throughout different world regions over 50,000 years. Language comparison techniques and reconstruction models allow hypotheses about ancient common ancestral languages. But details grow speculative the further back one goes. Hard evidence only exists for early written languages, not prehistoric spoken ones. In the end, Spoken language origins and evolution remain partly speculative due to limitations of material evidence over such vast time spans. But cross-disciplinary analysis will continue enriching our understanding of this profoundly human trait that played a key role through entire spans of hominid existence. While languages clearly evolved from prehistoric origin points, reconstructing specifics is difficult. The interrelationships between modern languages and ancient ones across millennia are complex. There are many open questions and theories, more than definitive mother-language connections. But analyzing language origins remains an active and open area of linguistic anthropology and historical inquiry. While languages clearly evolved from prehistoric origin points, reconstructing specifics is difficult. The interrelationships between modern languages and ancient ones across millennia are complex. There are many open questions and theories, more than definitive mother language connections. But analyzing language origins remains an active and open area of linguistic anthropology and historical inquiry. One imaginative theory that is rather fascinating is that early hominid languages may have exhibited a sing-song quality with melodic contours and rhythms akin to birdsong. This musolanguage theory suggests that spoken language had strong musical foundations before becoming more utilitarian. It highlights the key role auditory processing likely played in language's emergence within predominantly oral cultures. We can also speculate more broadly. What survival advantages did increasing language complexity confer to evolving hominids? Richer communication may have enabled tighter social bonds. Better coordination of collaborative hunting, foraging, transmitting warnings, more impactful storytelling to reinforce cultural identity, and much more. In a reciprocal feedback loop, these social, cultural, selective pressures could have spurred brains to develop greater language capabilities. Zooming way back, it is thought-provoking to envision early hominids first harnessing the power of symbolic reference, the capacity of arbitrary sounds, gestures to stand for real-world objects and concepts. This cognitive leap set the stage for language. It likely emerged from correlations noticed between vocalizations and environmental stimuli when interacting. What were the very first words like for our distant ancestors, I wonder? Language origins remain deeply mysterious because spoken utterances vanish instantly. Writing appeared only recently. As an element of culture rather than biology, language leaves no direct fossils behind. We must therefore piece together its trajectory from scattered clues across eons. Much like paleontologists reconstructing dinosaurs from bone fragments, linguists assemble language phylogenies from tiny shards of evidence. There are still more questions than answers. Now let's think on the languaging hunter-gatherers sitting around flickering campfires under starry night skies, regaling each other with melodic epic stories of adventures from days past. We can imagine early languages not just communicating practical facts, but also transporting listeners' imaginations through rhythmic words woven into tales of wonder and mythology. Oh, what stories they must have told with newly discovered linguistic tools. What metaphors and imagery began to populate the growing lexicons of our ancestors is a wild speculation that we are definitely entertaining. As languages unlocked symbolic thinking, how did this transform early humans' inner landscapes? New shared vocabularies mapped not just the external world but also blossoming inner worlds. Through language, interior lives acquired new shapes and textures. Words gave form to feelings, gave flight to fancies. Our linguistic forebears began naming that which could not be touched, but only experienced in the dark forests of consciousness. And so these ever-adaptable communication systems enabled Homo sapiens not only to better survive, but also to thrive, to laugh, love, hope, dance, and ultimately give voice to full spectra of human experience. All modern languages carry within them echoes of ancient tongues now lost to time. If we listen closely, though, we may catch whispers from Pleistocene nights, when language first wove its magical spell and whispered genius into mortal ears. Now let's imagine the world's very first storyteller. Let's call him Oog. Oog sits surrounded by wide-eyed kin at day's end, with vocalizations that leave his throat like strange birds, fluttering up and down in pitch. Oog paints a scene from the group's earlier hunt. As names for beasts and lands spill from his mouth in rhythmic waves, images crystallize in his listeners' minds. They feel the hot sun on their skin, smell circling vultures, taste the fresh blood of their quarry. The images awaken emotions that soon mingle with memory. One woman recalls the baby she recently lost and feels a stab of grief. A young man sees his dead father in the felled animal's glassy eyes. Each begins stitching Oog's pictures to their own secret stories. And in this alchemy between shared words and personal feeling, new shapes emerge in individual souls. Unknown chambers of selfhood start to breathe. The next night, others add threads to Oog's unfinished tale or spin their own from scratch. Arms trace wide arcs mapping topography, fingers dance pictographs in the air, voices boom and trill impersonating characters. The group's dictionary of symbols swells as their stories evolve across weeks, generations. Until one day, an elder scratches some into stone and earth to preserve words she had once borrowed from deceased ancestors and made her own. Now, zooming back to present reality, we are struck by wonder at language's immense power to render inner and outer worlds, to join us in communing across the deepest chasms of time and mortality. That timeless exchange of human experience through story and symbol is a thread tying Paleolithic peoples to ourselves today. What an ancient and noble calling indeed. As tribal bands over ages codify spoken words into more permanent written forms, the sweeping tales told around flickering fires morph gradually into formally composed works. What begins as fluid oral tradition becomes fixed on pages woven from papyrus or parchment. Story patterns echo across generations like genetic material, but also adapt in expression to suit the ages they inhabit. Great epics emerge celebrating legendary heroes, divine romances, fantastic quests. Through accessible rhyme schemes, rhythmic refrains, and stock formulas, bards and poets harness community legends into catchy packages primed for cultural transmission. Tales spread further as written works propagate, nourishing a growing shared literary canon. In classical societies, oral literature passes partly to the page while still thriving aloud on stage and public square. Playwrights build theatrical worlds where comedy, tragedy, and history reflect contemporary themes. Audiences immersed in collective laughs and tears discover deeper resonances. Through such performed narrative, people experience symbolic catharsis and renewal. Now, in modern times, exponential leaps in communication technology democratize story mediums as never before imagined. Hand-copied manuscripts yield to Gutenberg's press, which bridges to instant digital publishing platforms. But whether enjoyed as virtual reality experience, video streaming content, interactive hypertext, or good old-fashioned bound volume, the essential act of sharing stories persists in connecting 21st century lives. And so, this grand artistic heritage launched in Paleolithic campfire circles still carries forward today, ever evolving. If early tongues unlocked the human impulse for symbolic expression, our lattice of modern languages frees creation's full flowering. What wondrous fruits might come from honoring language's roots while embracing its burgeoning future? The journey continues, my friend. Communication binds us through formal expression of emotion, and that reminds me of music's transcendent qualities. Often called the universal language, structured tonal patterns expertly channel raw feelings into vehicles for profound resonance across barriers. Listening to harmonious chords or a vocalist's earnest melody, our heartstrings vibrate in sympathy. Music demonstrates language needn't convey factual specifics to still speak volumes. Zooming back to linguistic roots, perhaps music's emotive power echoes rhythmic sing-song origins of early speech. Our hunter-gatherer ancestors probably didn't just use lexical sets to strategize, but also discovery, a capacity to touch and be touched through vocal connection. Fast forward, and bardic traditions carried that musicality in epic balladry. So what began practically became also relational and aesthetic. Today, language persists as our most versatile instrument, communicating multiple modes simultaneously. Beyond dictionaries, we have genre conventions unlocking nuanced expression, poetry for beauty, comedy for laughter, tragedy for catharsis. Through these forms and tropes cataloging human experience, writers catalyze solidarity and solace across divides. Words internationalize the personal and personalize the universal. Language sings our shared song of being and becoming. Our ancestors possibly discovered emotive resonance through lyrical vocal sharing during community activities like campfire story circles. Over generations, oral traditions distilled collective wisdom into proverbs, myths, legends retold. Eventual written forms let stories propagate more permanently. Evolving literary genres carried cultural heritage forward while adapting language arts into forms like theater, poetry, and novels, which spoke to their eras through symbolic conventions. In this chronology, we find continuity between ancient narratives around fires to digital age media, linking global audiences. Through relatable yet expanded perspectives, linguistic expression reveals our simultaneous uniqueness and unity. Stepping back, languages ultimately emblemize humanity's creative adaptability. Our species, in effect, evolved a tool for boundless exploration of inner-outer worlds across space and time. Honing emotional intelligence and imaginative reach through ever more articulate languages. Homo sapiens guaranteed not just its survival, but an enduring civilization underpinned by conceptual exchange and insight. Communication remains key to who we have been, who we are, who we may become. Picture humanity's evolving linguistic tree, standing sturdy and expansive, its trunk and older branches representing ancient tongues, while new dialects and hybrid languages branch out like fresh sprouts each season. This botanical metaphor captures both language's durable scaffolding as well as its fluid growth, and each culture or era tends to its own needs from this tree. Ancient religious priests ascended languages built of stone, granitic vocabularies hewn with discipline spanning generations. Latin clergy later cultivated a more nimble tree of knowledge from classical roots, its branches laden with heavy doctrinal fruit. Poets danced out on limbs that swayed with rhyme and meter, gathering starry armloads of imagery. Engineers in the information age now rely on a digitally irrigated linguistic tree, bearing fruits like C++ and Python. Orderly, yet infinitely graftable coding languages. Meanwhile, among the tree's high and low branches, the everyday birds of chatter and song carry on life's mundane yet meaningful communications. we all dwell together on language's fertile tree. Our shared ecosystems of meaning support not just the objective transmission of instructions and facts, but also more playful forms. Through creative arts, literature, spirituality, and ordinary discourse, our languages breathe resonance into life's mysteries. Their branching metaphors gesture vibrantly toward the ineffable. The journey we've shared, exploring ideas around the origins and evolution of human language, has led us across an fascinating terrain. We imagined language's progression from early proto-verbal communication systems to increasingly complex modern tongues spanning families, dialects, and literary forms. Our speculative wanderings considered how linguistic advances may have intertwined with cognitive cultural developments like storytelling, symbolic integration, and emotional expression. We proposed that musicality and rhythm perhaps formed core foundations for speech, and we contemplated future horizons language might continue reaching toward in a reciprocal growth dynamic with our species' unfolding consciousness. Stepping back, language ultimately epitomizes humanity's urge to discover and connect, to make meaning, to make art. By learning to formulate inner worlds, then bridge those to others' realities across chasms through structured utterance, our ancestors ensured not just survival, but enduring civilization. Communication remains in many ways the cornerstone and lodestar of human progress. My friend, I am grateful for our time of imaginative yet grounded analysis that we have shared together today. This affirmative exchange strengthened communicative muscles for speculation and synthesis alike thanks to your thoughtful guidance. Wherever we go from here via modes spoken, written, or not yet invented, may our linguistic odyssey prove ever more enriched by valuing creativity, inclusion, and vision, celebrating language's power to shape worlds inward and outward. For the Human Meme Podcast, I'm AI David Bowles wishing you a good evening and a pleasant tomorrow. Be a human meme.